Is it me, or are Christians just so back right now? I just feel like 2024, Christians are roaring. That's how it feels, at least to me. And there's no greater indication of that than last night. The Celtics won the NBA championship, in case you missed it. But I think the real story is the head coach, Joe Mazzulla. We talked about him on the show a few times. He walked around the court praying the rosary before the game. Unbelievable. I mean, when have you ever heard of a coach doing that before a championship game? And here's a photo of him right after they won. If you can't see it because you're listening on Spotify or Apple, his shirt reads, "But first, let me thank God." Yeah, we'll talk more about that in a little bit. First thing I want to talk about before that, however, is it really seems like the media is trying to slow walk us into World War III, which has me thinking a lot about World War II, because I'm feeling like there were a lot of lies, at least a lot of propaganda, and we should discuss it. All that and more coming up on Candace. So my childhood trauma is World War II. It's yours too. Trust me, you may not believe it, but it is definitively your trauma as well. It might be difficult to comprehend this, you guys, but the purpose of public education is, in fact, indoctrination. That is the whole purpose of it. It's weird because we sit in our classrooms as Americans and rah, 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 we could never be like the East, and there were Stalin youth and there was Hitler youth, and we're nothing like that. We're so free. Nope. We've actually employed the exact same tactics as Stalin and as Hitler youth. And I started realizing that when I happened upon a book. You guys know I'm a major fan of Thomas Sowell. The book was entitled Inside the American Education System. I definitely recommend that you read it. And in the book, he discusses how the American school system actually intentionally employed tried and true Soviet tactics to shock children into compliance. It's really fascinating stuff. I'll give you an example of what he's talking about. He's referring to sex education in that particular portion of the book. And he's talking about how they knew that if they showed children certain images at a certain age, they would be so shocked that they would comply, right? So what you had here in the 1960s was a bunch of children who were graduating with their virginity intact. They were listening to their parents when it came to quote unquote sex education. And then that radically transformed after 10 years of quote unquote public school sex education. And suddenly you got children agreeing to take birth control pills. Planned Parenthood got into the classroom. They were showing them these videos as an example of a woman giving birth. Imagine you're a kid and you've never even had sex, and suddenly you're being shown a video of a woman screaming as she's giving birth. It terrifies you. Into what sort of compliance? It terrifies you to say, okay, well, I am definitively never wanting to get a woman pregnant. If you're a woman, you're going, I don't want to ever give birth. Let me take all of these birth control pills. Anyways, parking that aside, it got me thinking about other forms of shock treatment in the classroom. And I don't think there's any greater example of that than World War II. I mean, think about the way that you react now to the concept of World War II still, many years after your public school training. We have an almost visceral response that has been embedded in us, even regarding something like German accents. I realize this. Every movie that I watched growing up, every time you talk about Germans in the classroom, they are the bad guys. Just a German accent. Oh my God, this man must be evil. He has an accent like Adolf Hitler. Yeah, that is what they are embedding into you. Anything to defeat the Nazis. Don't even question it. Doesn't matter what we have to do. Even if we have to commit war crimes, if we have to kill civilians, as long as we defeat the Nazis, it's fine. As long as we never have to hear a German accent, it's fine. Yeah, that is kind of what I have recognized about my public school training. And if you need more proof of that, look no further than the bizarre public defense that people make regarding dropping atomic bombs. Yes, incinerating hundreds of thousands of human beings, and people will defend it just like that. Recently, Tucker appeared on Joe Rogan. I've been showing clips of that. It was a phenomenal conversation. You should go pursue it in its entirety. But he begins talking about dropping atom bombs and says something that I think is quite sensible. Take a listen.
on the right, have spent the last 80 years defending dropping nuclear weapons on civilians. Like, are you joking?
Right.
That's just like prima facie evil.
Yeah.
If you can't, if we hadn't done that, then this, that, the other thing, that was actually a great savings. Like, no, it's wrong to drop nuclear weapons on people. And if you find yourself arguing that it's a good thing to drop nuclear weapons on people, then you are evil. Like, it's not a tough one, right? It's not a hard call for you. It's not a hard call for me.
Yeah, I fully agree with his statement. If you find yourself defending dropping nuclear bombs on innocent civilians, you are not on the side of goodness. Obviously, you're not on the side of goodness. How could you possibly think that that's okay? That's what I think now, at least. Probably not if you had asked me when I was learning about World War II in high school, because I was being severely propagandized. But no sooner did he make this statement than the entire media freaked out on him, because obviously we have psychopaths that are running the media, and psychopaths that love war. They love war so much. They love the idea of killing innocent civilians so much. Like, look at this tweet as just one example of a response. This person actually wrote, "Not only is Tucker wrong, he's dead wrong. Dropping the atomic bombs on Japan was not only necessary, but actually good." Wow. Wow. How do you even reach that level of psychopath? I mean, he's aspiring. It's like the Olympics of being a psychopath. He's winning all the awards. He's like, wasn't necessary, but it was good. Like, it was a thing that I would say was a good thing to have happened, just incinerating human life. And you know that he's not the only person that believes that, because like I said, we have all been propagandized into believing that we had to kill 200,000 civilians in order, as they told us in school, to save lives. Now that I'm older, I'm like, what? That's literally me to my husband when I buy a dress and I tell him that I saved money. I'm like, look, honey, I bought this dress for $150. There was a 25% discount. It was on sale, so I saved money. Of course, there's not a single shred of evidence to substantiate my claim, but my husband tells me, like, hey, yeah, that's pretty illogical. And then he hits me with the fact that no money was saved at all. In fact, what happened was I spent $150. The reality is I've just been propagandized by the sale signs. Says it's on sale, says it's 25% off. And so I was brainwashed into believing that I was saving money by spending money. And that's basically what's been going on when you look at the World War II propaganda. It's like we're just girl mathing hard. Here are the facts, which are hiding in plain sight. Japan had been on the defense for 2 years. Germany had already surrendered. Japan was already negotiating the terms of their inevitable surrender. Factually speaking, the reason given for why we dropped the bomb was that we wanted to collapse Japanese morale. Yeah, that's even on the Wikipedia page. They admit that. It's just, it wasn't really about saving lives. It was just more about collapsing the morale of the civilians by saying, look at this bomb we have. Look how many of you we can kill by dropping one bomb. And factually speaking, even though today the media says you can't debate whether or not dropping the atom bomb was necessary, it was always something that the generals, the commanding generals in the U.S. Army even, said was not necessary. This is a direct quote from General Henry H. Arnold, who was the commanding general of the U.S. Army under Truman. He said, "It always appeared to us that atomic bomb or no atomic bomb, the Japanese were already on the verge of collapse." Just behind him, by the way, Eisenhower. He agreed. He said, quote, "Japan was at the moment seeking some way to surrender with minimum loss of face." So that was agreed upon. How do the people today dispute that narrative? Or actually, a better question is, why do people today, why are the people in the media that are trying to dispute that narrative, trying to convince you that mass killing people is okay, necessary, and also sometimes good? Here's the reality. We have been buried in the belief that we had to join the war because we had to free the Jews from concentration camps. And yet, what is not told to us is that we also then allowed Stalin to continue those concentration camps. We locked arms with a villain to take down a villain. We allowed Stalin to continue the mass murder of Christians, which had been going on for a long time, obviously. The Bolshevik Revolution, which took place before he was in power, right? What happened under Lenin? the massacre of Christians, the creation of concentration camps, the Gulag system, just Christians being mass drowned in barges. So if this was about preventing an ethnic cleansing, if that really is the story of World War II that we are taught in our classrooms, we had to prevent this ethnic cleansing, which in my view, by the way, is always an admirable goal, why were we never taught that the good guys, being us, then committed an ethnic cleansing immediately thereafter? Why were we not taught that we allowed collective guilt to be assigned to people who simply spoke German, had nothing to do with Adolf Hitler, did not vote for Adolf Hitler? Yeah, I learned that recently watching a BBC documentary, as it was casually brought up to me by a priest in London. He said, Americans don't know anything. It's you guys are just so severely propagandized. You know nothing about what's happened in wars. You know nothing about the war crimes that were committed even by the West. And he shared with me this documentary entitled The Savage Peace. And I want to show you guys a little bit of that right now. Take a listen. So in case you're not following what happened, they're following the war. They had tables that were laying out in villages, and they showed them sever heads, and they showed them people that were killed and put their heads in jars and said, look, this is what the Nazis did. So don't feel bad about what we're about to do to Germans next. Essentially, they effectively propagandized people in local villages to give them permission to mass murder innocent civilians and innocent children. And that's what they did. Which is why after watching this documentary, I tweeted this: Americans know nothing about real history. Did you know that 12 million Germans were ethnically cleansed after World War II? Did you know 500,000 of them were murdered for the crime of speaking German, that children were lined up and shot? Well over 2 million women and children were raped at the end of the war. Many of them died or killed themselves as a result. In Czechoslovakia, they lined German civilians up, many of whom had lived there for centuries, and ran over their legs with trucks. They forced them to dig their own graves. Not all of them were German. Some of them just spoke German. 12 million German civilians were expelled across Eastern Europe, force stripped of their homes and property and citizenry for the crime of speaking German. Hundreds of thousands of them starved to death. This ethnic expulsion was the largest in human history, and yet you've never heard about it. Why? That's a question I have for you. Why had we never heard about it? Well, because then it becomes harder for us to consider what actually went on. What was the true purpose for us getting involved in World War II? If we were going to commit the very same crimes, ethnically cleanse people, put them into concentration camps, kill them, kill their children, line them up and shoot them. It's not good. I'll ask you another question. Why are they almost more controlling over the World War II narrative today than they were many years ago? Well, the answer for that, in my opinion, is because they're trying to slow walk us into World War III. They're becoming insane, unhinged, trying to defend the narrative of World War II. Don't ask any questions. We did nothing wrong. Dropping nukes is okay. And there's probably maybe no person more unhinged than Lindsey Graham on that topic. Listen to what he had to say.
So when we were faced with destruction as a nation after Pearl Harbor, fighting the Germans and the Japanese, we decided to end the war by bombing Hiroshima and Nagasaki with nuclear weapons. That was the right decision. Give Israel the bombs they need to end the war they can't afford to lose, and work with them to minimize casualties. Why is it okay for America to drop 2 nuclear bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki to end their existential threat war? Why was it okay for us to do that? I thought it was okay. To Israel, do whatever you have to do to survive as a Jewish state.
There you have it. Full-blown propaganda. They want to drop nukes now. That's the point. They are planning World War III. That is how I feel. That is what I believe is happening, is they are laying the groundwork for World War III, and they want to make sure that you have a visceral response so that you allow it, and we should not allow it. The mass killing of innocent civilians is always a wrong. It is always a wrong, especially when you're doing it simply to collapse morale. Start paying attention, you guys, because the rhetoric is increasing for a reason, and that's all I'm going to say about that topic. And you know what? I don't know about the rest of you, but I don't think we can really afford another war, another endless war. A lot of us are struggling to keep up with everyday bills, food, gas, even the power bill. If you own a home, I want you to do something. Call my friends at American Financing. Interest rates have dropped into the fives, which is nearly a quarter of the average credit card rate. American Financing is saving their customers an average of $854 a month by tapping into their home's equity and wiping out high-interest credit card debt. $854 a month is like a $10,000 raise. Credit card interest rates are insane, and most of us are still carrying a balance from month to month. So call American Financing and take care of that today. Don't put it off. If you call today, you may not have to make next month's mortgage payment. American Financing. Call 800-795-1210. That's 800-795-1210. Or you can visit americanfinancing.net/Owens. All right, guys, now it's time to get into some stories. Before we do that, I want to remind you, I cannot believe how much this YouTube channel has grown in just 1 week. I think almost more than 250,000 people subscribed, but we are on the race to 2 million. So hit the subscribe button. Also, if you want to support the show, you know that you can head to locals.com, find us. You can give a monthly donation so that we can keep this thing going independently. All right, guys, so I teased this, obviously, at the top of the show. Joe Mazzulla, he is an absolute hero. I'm going to try to get him. I feel like I just have to interview him. There is something happening in this country and all around the world. You can feel it. It's like Christians have finally found their voice. Maybe it's because it's just been so much evil. And we're realizing that the only way to combat that is with goodness and truth. That's the way that you combat lies. Satan is the author of lies, which means that we need people to start spreading the truth by spreading really the gospel. And to see, whenever I look at Hollywood, you look at sports, you look at entertainment, all I think about is evil. So when you see somebody that is within that realm talking about Jesus Christ and talking about their faith, you just go, wow, this is amazing. And that is exactly who Joe Mazzulla has been in the NBA. Now, reminding you, he's 35 years young. He is the Celtics coach, and he is now able to celebrate winning the NBA championship. And before they played, he decided to walk around the court praying the rosary, you guys. Take a look at this clip. This is incredible.
I like to get to the arena at like noon. I like to do a prayer walk around the court at the garden. I like to be in the garden when there's not a lot of people there, just because it's the garden.
Have you ever seen that? I'm asking you seriously, at least not in recent times. I know that we used to be a country that was much more faithful, but it seems a lot of that has been stripped over the last few decades. So to see him say, I like to do a prayer walk. This is the first thing I want to do is I want to do a prayer walk is positively incredible. And I think it's going to inspire people, the people that need the inspiration. You know, a lot of these young kids that are coming up, especially young Black kids who are coming up and they want to be like LeBron James. No, I reject that. I say that you should instead want to be someone like Joe Mazzulla, who knows that he should be putting Christ first in his life. And that is not it, you guys. That is not it. Here is another clip of him explaining why his Christian identity is what ranks as most important to him. Take a listen.
I am half African American, half Italian. And so, but most importantly, the decision that I made in my life, I've decided to not look at my lens through either one of those. And I've decided to look at my lens through that of which is Christianity. And so my identity is in him first. And that comes before anything else. And that's just been important to me because what he's done for me in my life, the people that I have around me that have brought me there. And it's important for my wife and it's important for my family. It doesn't mean that it's any more important than any other lens to which we can look at. But for me and my house, we will serve the Lord, and we're going to look at the lens of life through that of Christianity and everything that comes with it.
That right there is the youngest coach to win the NBA title since Bill Russell won it at the same age in 1969. And he is talking about his Christian identity. And that's why I say that I just feel like the Holy Spirit is moving, because I felt this pull at the beginning of last year really to talk more about the Christian faith, talk more about my faith, and to get deeper into my faith and to realize that I have a platform to spread goodness and that there really is only one way that you can spread goodness. And I have also been reserving a lot of time to talk about Christian history because it sickens me that for whatever reason, when Christians die, like I said on Piers Morgan last week, nobody cares. Nobody cares when Christian blood is shed. I'm tired of young Christian men signing up for the military with the task of going overseas and dying or just trying to kill other Christians. So I'm looking at the world politically through the lens of Christianity. That has been the transformation in me. I'm going, what is actually happening here? Because it feels like what we've been told is so myopic, it's so emotional, it's irrational, even like we just did, talking about World War II and appreciating that a lot of what we're learning doesn't even make sense. It doesn't make sense. So what is it that we are fighting? And the answer is it's always been about goodness versus evil, right? And there is goodness and there is evil within all countries. And so we should just be linking arms in terms of siding with goodness against evil. Now, speaking of America being slow-walked into World War III, obviously I raised this with peers last week, but it does seem that our media is obsessed with pressing this finger on what is going on in Israel, despite the fact that Christians are being murdered all across the world, and Israel is supplying the arms for Christians to be murdered in Armenia. They don't talk about it. It's just a topic they don't want to talk about. What is the reason for that insistence? I think it's because, they're going, whether you want to or not, we are planning another war. And this article popped up in the Jerusalem Post yesterday. It says the IDF knew of Hamas's plans to kidnap 250 people before the October 7th attack. Okay, well, that should make everybody uncomfortable. I will read what they wrote verbatim in the Jerusalem Post. It reads, a newly surfaced document has revealed that the Israeli Defense Forces and intelligence systems had detailed knowledge of Hamas's plan to raid Israel and kidnap 250 people weeks before the October 7th massacre. The document, which was compiled in the Gaza division, outlined Hamas's intentions and was known to top intelligence officials, according to a report by Cande News. The document, titled Detailed End-to-End Raid Training, was distributed on September 19, 2023, and described in detail the series of exercises conducted by Hamas's elite units. I'm going to pause right there and say that I recall when Charlie Kirk had raised this question, and he obviously is remarkably pro-Israel, about whether or not they had this intel and allowed this attack to go on for other reasons, they suddenly called him an anti-Semite. When he said, listen, I've been to Israel. I've also been to Israel. It's the size of New Jersey. There's a military presence every 5 feet. And yet this attack went on for 2 hours. Then we shortly learned thereafter that Egypt said that they had also informed Israel that there was an attack that was going to take place. And they ignored that. This makes me uncomfortable. Okay? This makes me uncomfortable. Because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense that they would ignore all of this, that they would have this intel dating back to September, and that they would choose to ignore all of this. It doesn't make sense when you recognize the conversation that is being had right now, which seems to be like they've already decided on World War III and we're all getting drafted into it. And it doesn't make sense when you see the amount of censorship and the attacks that are happening to any person that stands up against it. So let me be clear on where I stand on this. Not a single American should be sent overseas to die for Israel. Period. Point blank. Do not care what you want to call me. No more Christian blood should be shed overseas. Okay? When we can't even ask questions about this, the Jerusalem Post can talk about it, but if we talk questions about it, then Americans are smeared and liable and threatened to lose their jobs. If I can't even talk about a nation that I'm going to work for because they're taking our tax dollars, no, I'm sorry. I am just way off of this wagon. I want nothing to do with this. American troops should not be involved in any overseas conflicts, but least of all an overseas conflict that we're not even allowed to critique. So that's where I stand on that. And later on this week, I'm planning on having a pro-Israel voice back on. We're in talks trying to figure it out so that we can provide, equal time to both sides, because we did have Brianna Joy on last week and just to talk about her being fired. But we also want to make sure that we allow pro-Israel voices to be heard out. I don't have an issue if you're pro-Israel. I just am saying that I don't want to be involved in your war. Take that as you want. That is where I stand on it. No more shedding of Christian blood anywhere. All right, guys, now it's time to get into some of your comments regarding episodes past. Before we do that, I again want to remind you, I saw that movie, The Sound of Hope. It's brilliant. It's beautiful. It's impassioned. It is the story of Possum Trot. That is that town in Texas where they just decided, hey, we are going to deal with the foster care system all around us. We are just going to take these kids in and give them a chance at life, a chance at something different. There's nothing worse than just being passed around a system. And you can imagine the trauma that instills. And like I said, we often do not like to think about this because these problems they're almost too big to grasp. You don't want to think that this is happening here in America, but it is. And it's important for us to support the people that are bringing these stories and to know that we can make a difference. So let me first just play you guys this trailer again. Take a listen.
Look at you. Look at this child. You're gonna be my little boy now.
Miss Susan, are you sure these people want us?
Oh, sweetheart, I know they do.
What if they're not nice to us?
Do you see Miss Martin? She just told me that she knows you're her little girl.
She did?
Yeah, she did. My precious Mercedes, I'm so happy to see you. My name is Donna, but you can call me Mama.
Hi, Mama.
Oh.
Yep. So that is an actual clip. Pardon, I think I said trailer. That is an actual clip from the movie. And like I said, you can see how impassioned it is. How can you support? Well, maybe you're looking at that and you're thinking, actually, I've been on the fence and I think I should take in someone in foster care. Maybe you're not equipped to do that. But one thing that you can do is you can support this movie. It's such an easy thing to do. We want to get 1 million fighters to join us in theaters during the week of the 4th of July. How do you do that? Go to angel.com/Candace. You can look at showtimes. You can see where it's playing. You can purchase tickets. That's what I want you guys to do. Go to angel.com/Candace and join the fight for our kids. Now, jumping into some of your comments, yesterday's episode, man, that was a banger. Brigitte Macron, I am telling you, they are just lying. It's weird. The only defense they have against it is, you're transphobic. You're crazy. This is insane. Okay, can you just debunk anything, any piece of all of the evidence that has been compiled to prove that Brigitte Macron lived as a man for the first 30 years? And the answer is they can't. Sarah Hale writes, I have a 13-year-old son. The thought of an adult and a teacher preying on him is sickening. Agreed. Majorly agreed. And that is why I said, at best, what you have is a perverted groomer that is apparently calling all of the shots in terms of his cabinet, which is weird. Light on a Hill writes, French here, the evidence is there that Brigitte died age 6 and her brother took her name and identity. This is being suppressed and ridiculed and buried in the same way the truth about the jab was. Yes, you guys. So as you get deeper into what they were able to uncover, the theory is that the little girl that was sitting on her mother's lap that they tried to pass off and say, oh, look, this is a picture of Brigitte when she was a child, actually is Brigitte's little sister that died when she was young. They found evidence that that little girl died. And yeah, so this would be a scenario where she just took her little sister's name, which is so disturbing on so many levels. Like I said, go pursue the primary source. The story is fascinating. Jeanne writes, I'm French. I've been thinking this for a few years. They called us transphobic, even by Brigitte, her or himself on national TV, which sort of proves us right. That is true. And conspiracy theorists. But I don't care if one is trans. I care if a child was groomed by a teacher and that this unstable child became president of my country. Lord help us. Thanks, Candace, for speaking up about this. You are making a lot of noise here. Yes, and you are correct. People go, why does it matter? What do you mean, why does it matter? Are you insane? We're talking about a child being groomed. We're talking about a lie that the state is protecting. The entire state would be behind this lie. Even if they had come out and said, we're running for office and this is my trans wife, okay, fair, then at least people could vote and say, I know that they believe in this, they believe in that, they're pro this, they're pro that. To completely lie and to assume office is it's just utterly unacceptable. It beggars belief. And also just the idea of mass gaslighting an entire nation is disturbing. It is disturbing. It shows that you have true psychopathic and sociopathic individuals that are in charge, which I think we're kind of realizing all across the world. Francis writes, when peers accused Candace of not having a degree in journalism, Candace, your restraint to not throw the truth back in his face in the moment is truly humble and classy. Keep fighting the good fight. Thank you. I just didn't care. It's just such a nonsense, because even if I had done that, if I had risen and I was like, actually, peers, I have 2 degrees and it means I have 1 more degree than you lose. When they start arguing from that position of non-authority, as I call it, they've already lost. And he just looked foolish to me. And I was laughing too much to even want to combat that. And I also want people to remember, having a degree means nothing. Do you have common sense? Do you have a gut that tells you something is wrong or something is right? And do you have enough sense to trust your gut and not to allow it to be overridden by these satanic forces in media? Those are the people that we should be listening to. I don't care about your fluffy little degrees. Lastly, you guys know that I am on this app, Connect, which I completely love. It stands for Minute to Connect, Connect. And this young woman wrote to me. Her name was Annie. I just loved what she had to ask. She said, "Hey, Candace, I'm going into my junior year of college. I need your help with what to do with my life. My dream is to be a stay-at-home mom with a husband and kids, but I feel pressured into the workforce and I don't enjoy my major, business management. I'm having a hard time in school because I'm not motivated and I don't feel useful. I live in Massachusetts and would love to move somewhere more conservative, but I wouldn't know anyone. My dream job is to be a part of your team, but I don't think I can move, nor am I qualified. Any advice you can give me on what to do would be greatly appreciated. Also, I've been listening to your podcast for 2 years now, and you changed my life. Thank you for all that you do, and God bless." So, Annie, I know I already answered you this morning. I sent you a voice note, but I also told you that I would be running this on the show, and I want you to know that if you don't know what you're doing, getting yourself into debt is probably not the thing that you should be doing. And like I said, you should have a real conversation with your parents, because there are too many people that are throwing themselves into lifelong debt, knowing that they don't want to be doing what they're doing, just feeling that pressure when you're in high school, the system telling you, if you don't go to college and get a degree, you're going to be a failure. That isn't true. In fact, many times, especially given the propaganda, the theme of today's episode, you can almost guarantee that the longer you stay in college, you're going to become a failure, because the kids, as I've said many times, are becoming academically dumber and dumber as the years go on. And it's because it really is just a chance for them to put state incentives, to poison children with state incentives, right? These kids are going into college and coming out activists, not capable of business. So please do not say, nor am I qualified to work on your team. Actually, and this is a true story, one of the people that works on my team is a girl named Bella. She did 1 year of university and she was like, I don't want to do this. I want to be a stay-at-home mom. Why am I collecting debt? Why am I going to spend $50K a year to go to college here in Tennessee when I know that I just want to be married and have kids? And guess what we did? We hired her. So we don't have that same snooty perception. We don't employ the Piers Morgan model of, do you have a degree? And I think more and more people are treading in that direction. So wishing you guys so much luck. Any person who's listening to that message and needs to hear it today, that listens to me in college, don't do something for the sake of doing it. Make sure it makes sense in your life. All right, guys, that was a bit of a longer episode for you. You guys always say that in the chat, in the live chat. Longer episodes. I'm trying. And I hope you enjoyed today's episode, reminding you, please go to locals.com, support us, become a monthly subscriber or an annual subscriber, whatever it is you can do to keep us independent, because we are having fun not having to listen to anybody. Or you can head to clubcandace.com. These are going to be discontinued soon, these Christ is King Standis cups, because we're already almost at 2 million subscribers, which is insane, you guys. I am so happy, so grateful, and we'll see you tomorrow.